Claudia Hammer did the paintings in the front gallery. And today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the creative process of how I came about doing these objects and the subject matter and the process of painting them. So a number of years ago, maybe 10, I can't remember the year, it was 2008 or 5, something, I did a show of tool portraits. And my great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather, was a carpenter in the Civil War, during the Civil War time. He was also a soldier. So after the Civil War, I guess, maybe before and after, he made furniture. And my dad inherited a lot of his old antique tools. So I've got lots of levels, planes, wooden planes, chisels, and other miscellaneous things, and a lot of the wooden ones have his name and his brother's name carved into the wood. So I wanted to hand that down, keep it in the family, and my family, the three of us girls were all adopted, and so I wanted to keep it in that family of his, on his mother's side. So I'm going to give those tools to one of my cousin's son. He's a woodworker. So I wanted to give that to him. And so before I gave them away, I wanted to spend some time with them. You know, you just can't, hold them all the time, take them around with them or anything. So I decided I would paint them, and that way I'd be spending lots of time with it, And then I'd feel like I knew them well, and then I could give them away and not miss it as much. So when I decided to do a body of work, when I joined PYRO, and I had 2 years, a whole 2 years to get ready for the show, and it was a lot harder than I thought. And I had ambitions of doing 20 paintings. Well, I got 13 done. And with teaching and, I have an old house, so, things had go wrong with the house, and so the time just didn't go as I had planned. I only had 3 good days every week to paint, and that's it. Nothing else disturbed me, got in the way. So I decided I did some old mixers a few years ago, and it was received well. I sold several at the Cherokee Art Fair, and they got snatched right up. So I thought, well, I might be onto something here. I was taking them and I'd seen artists, a trend in the art world where they disturb the edges of the painting. They make it smear off. Some of them take a face and they smear the whole half, bottom half off or something. Now that's a little too bold for me. I have a hard time doing it. But a little bit of smearing here and there wouldn't hurt anything. So I thought I'd give that a try, and that's when I tried out those and they worked. So I thought, when I had this opportunity to have a whole show, I thought I would start with that. And so I did that Hamilton Beach mixer in there, the big white one, the white bowl, and smeared something off where the highlight is, which is a pretty common way to start smearing. When you look at something that's really bright, you sort of see a little glow around it because it's reflecting a little bit, So I thought, okay, if I could create that, maybe, and that's what I did. And I smeared it, and I thought, oh, I've ruined the whole thing. I painted all this detail on it, and I've smeared it. It's like, no, don't wipe it off. Just smear something else. So I smeared something else, and I thought, well, that's not bad. The two together, and then I started smearing smearing everything, a little bit here, and then just smear a little bit, and then I let it sit, and then maybe come back and add a few details and smear a little bit more and add, layer. So that's my creative process. You smear and scare yourself, and then smear more. So I worked on the sander next, that Black & Decker sander, which was my dad's. It was so shiny, really shiny metal. And I thought, well, I'll just have the light coming right down and, have that light just glow right off. Well, I painted it on all of those except this one are painted on hardwood. So, you've got something hard, to put your knife onto or your brush. And so this was canvas. And I had really nicely with heavy canvas, made these 14 by 14s a number of years ago for something else. And I think I did wipe that off, but I had to put something behind it or be really careful. Maybe I used a brush on that, you know, something else to make it work. That one I worked a little longer on. Coming back to it, realizing it needed more, and then realizing it maybe needed less. And then I have to paint out what I did, and then realize it might need a little more, you know, so you just have them sitting somewhere and you look at them. So those two started the whole thing, and then I decided to do larger pieces. Well, I didn't want to do a huge mixer or anything like that, so I did multiple items. So I did the tools and orbs, and then I did the cameras and the video, film projector and the cameras. So I have mostly camera related things in there, some things in there for color, just for interest. So that pretty much in a nutshell is the creative process. So in amongst all that smearing, I'm thinking about color. And before, when I did those tool portraits years ago, they were more classic. So I think I had a mixer. It was like Betty's mixer. What mixer was that? That was a
Mixmaster.
A Mixmaster. I had a Mixmaster, and I had a towel, a linen dish towel, and I think I had a bowl in that one. But the background was very sedate, just a light coming in, very classical still life setup. You know, and the light's hitting it, and it's just a little brighter there. The rest is kind of darkish, you know, with this light coming out, and with layers of that. When you put a spotlight on it, that's what makes it shine, is those layers of white underneath. So, I want to do something different. And I did that one as perfectly as I could, you know, just as nice and soft edges, but still the detail and all that. And this one, you know, sort of been there, done that. I didn't want to do them so perfect. You know, I'm sort of past that. I want to do something else. So I'd noticed this trend, like I said, with the smearing and all this. And so I thought that's what I'd use. But that wasn't enough for me, moving forward with all of them. I think the Hamilton Beach is sort of like that. I can't remember what the background is right now on that. But I wanted to bring in some color. I saw this abstract person that was just doing abstracts, and Brian Ruttenberg. He calls them landscapes, but sometimes you can see a landscape in there, and he uses the most beautiful colors and contrasting colors, and so I was reading his book, and so I thought, oh, color, you know. So I did a sewing machine, and it had all this color behind it, you know, like sort of like he has all this colors, contrasting colors, and it was kind of busy. But I thought, well, you know, it's different. I like it, so I set it aside. And then when I did the film, the big one with the film, the cameras, I had that you know, bright green color that seemed to glow, you know, I don't know, remind me of film for some reason, who knows. You know, so color, so that was a challenge in each one, to get something different and not do the same thing, and get color, and just the right color. So that sewing machine was one of the first ones I had done, and so I couldn't keep them all in my house, so I stored them somewhere else in someone's office. And recently, about 2 weeks before the show, 2.5 maybe, I decided to get that one back, because I was thinking that one was really busy. And I thought, you know, now that I've done these others, and I did stripes on some of them too, just because I like stripes, I've always liked stripes, and so I did stripes on there. And I thought maybe I put stripes on that one, you know, or make it just a different color, or just reassess it, make it brighter in the middle, or do something, because I was thinking it doesn't go with the others. But I went home and I decided to change the background totally. Of course, to do that, then I needed to rework some things on the sewing machine, because the glow that I put in there, I'd smeared some of that light color down across the black sewing machine. So that didn't make sense anymore. So I had to paint the sewing machine. I mean, it was like one thing led to another, and you know, it had to dry, because you know, you had to hang it in, like, you know, in a short period of time. So That was kind of nerve-wracking, and I was doing little things to different ones, and I thought, oh, 2 days before I was going to hang, it's not dry yet, you know. So anyway, it did dry enough to hang, and I was hanging it. No, and it was dry enough. One stripes, the red stripes, I think it was that sewing machine. The alizarin crimson was not drying at all. It was sticky. It was like, you know, a week before it was like really gooey, you know. And so then I would sort of smear it with my thumb, smear it around, smear it just in the red parts and stuff. A few smears there and there. And then I thought, okay, now it'll dry quicker. Well, no, it didn't dry quicker. It was less of it to dry, but it did dry quicker. And so I think about 2 days before I had to hang, I decided I was going to put wax on it. So I thought, well, I'll wax all of it except for the red, you know, green and all this, and then do the red. When I do the red, I'll just put the wax on, which it'll smear into the wax, and then I can smear it all over the red stuff, you know, and then get wax on there. And so anyway, that worked, and then it was dry enough to hang. So anyway, the creative process can be scary at times. And, you know, the painting and the pushing of the paint, and every time I did it, that first smear on any of them, it was scary. I mean, where am I going to put it? What am I going to do? And how much? How do you load it? You know, you load your knife or whatever. Of course, if it's not right, if you're doing it and the paint's dry, you let it dry in between, you can wipe that off. So I had a backup plan in case it didn't work out. So, but it worked out, and you know, once I started smearing, then you know, all bets were off. So, I can't think of a thing more to say. Do you have any questions, Betty?
What about the gold gilt?
Oh, I forgot about that one. Yeah, the gold. I had done someone's wall with gold. They hired me to do this big swirl, you know, like the golden mean square, you know, the ratio, and the swirl of that. Oh, I think it went this way and came out that way, but you know. And so she wanted it in gold leaf, real gold leaf. So I had to calculate that on graph paper, and then anyway, I had some left over, and they had it. I gave all the stuff to her, and I said, you know, I would like to buy that back if I could, and so she just gave it to me. So I've had this gold leaf, you know, niggling in the back. Gold leaf, something shiny. So I decided, you know, I was doing that typewriter, and it was all black, and I had stripes, what else, in the background, and it was too much. And then so I thought I didn't like that. Didn't like the colors. I picked colors that were opposites, but it took up too much attention, even if I was to smear it and dull it down. I don't know, it just, and then it popped in my head, wouldn't that black look really nice with gold leaf? You know, so I painted it Chinese red, let that dry, and they often put that color behind gold leaf. You can put different colors. You can put tan behind it, but sometimes when the gold leaf gets a little crack, you know, when you put it on, it lays down, or in between the sheets, you'll see a little bit of red. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of nice. It's classic. So I'd worked with composition before, but not real gold. This was a little bit more nervous because it was real gold, right? Savored a little bit of it. So I put that on. I put on the sizing, you know, which is, it gets tacky in so many hours, and you have so many hours to work with it. And so then you lay it on. And the paint seemed good to me. When I put it on, you know, it seemed dry, you know, you feel it dry. Maybe, you know, just had a little bit of drag to it. It wasn't wet, but it was enough to make the gold leaf stick to it. So the gold leaf stuck to parts of the sewing machine I didn't want it to stick to. Well, I had to repaint that. So then painting the objects on there was a little tricky because, you know, you had to paint them perfectly. There's no paint next to it that you can come in and make it smaller or perfect the edges. You had to be really good. And so I did something, and I had to wipe just an edge, and it's like, uh-oh. You know, wiping on the gold leaf. Then I thought, but this isn't a good idea. So I decided to take off what I did, and then I varnished the gold leaf. And then I felt better about if something was wrong, I had to make it better, clean up an edge. Then I'm working on the varnish, not the gold leaf. The gold leaf won't tarnish, But you can get oil on it and it prints, you know, and it just protects it, keeps it from being too fragile. So it has several layers of varnish on that. Just over time, I do something, I put more on. Plus, you can't see your darks unless you put some sort of retouch varnish on there, you know, because your black paint will get really dull. Certain black paints get really dull when you know, and you can't see into that color. And if you don't put a varnish on there, you might mix up a black paint and work with it. When you put a varnish on there, you'll notice that one of them is more brown, one of them is more blue. You'll see the difference in the color if you don't varnish it and then match it, you know, try to put that on there. When you varnish it, it works, so. And if not, you can always smear something over it. Any other questions?
I had a question about, a couple of questions actually. One is about the origin of your orbs, which sort of give sort of mystical quality, I think, to some of the still lifes. And also, you mentioned changing the color. So is that an intuitive thing? I mean, you're just saying this would look good in green. I mean, how, is that just the painting talking to you, or, I mean, does it say, I want to be green? No,
Oh, heaven forbid if that started happening.
how do you come up
No,
with
I
this?
just look at it and I think either it's competing with the subject matter. So if it commands more attention than the subject matter, you know, and that's just sort of either your sensibility or, you know, you can have it sitting around for a week or two before I really decide, you know, I like it, but there's something about it, I'm not sure. And then it's one day it dawns on me, it's the color is too bright, or it's too busy, or it's, you know, needs something else with it to bring the attention back to the subject. So in everything that you paint, you need a subject. You need something that you want the viewers to see. And so I paint things on detailed, not as detailed as I used to. I try to be a little bit more painterly about it. You think it's detail, but I fooled you. It's not really all detail, but it looks that way. And then when you disturb edges, that brings your eye back to the detail. So by doing all this, you know, you're looking at that. You know, you might go over here and look at that, but your eye doesn't stay there because the detail's not there, and it goes back to what it is. So that's what just, when I see those people and they smear across a face or something, you know. But you know, that, and you can see they have done things perfect. The eyes might be perfect or something else. So you don't, they don't want you to look there. You'll see it, but it's right in the middle of the painting. I mean, it's just, I'm not that brave yet, you know, to do that.
And then the orbs.
And the orbs. You know, I like orbs. I like marbles. I've done numerous paintings of marbles, and I like the way the light comes through there. And so I saw this on the net, you know, these orbs, and they're like quartz crystal. Really cheap from China. And I thought, ooh, I'm gonna get one. And so I got one, it was like $8. And that includes shipping and everything. And it's like this big. It's a nice orb. Came with a little stand and everything, you know. So cool. And so I decided to put that in. I put the marbles in, you know, but I needed something large, I thought. And I made the marbles actually the bigger than it should be. The blue one's a lot bigger, and then the red one's about the same size. I just made it look like falling down with the smearing and And in retrospect, I wish I'd done that more. On the journalism, you know, there's the pictures flying through, you know, just to give it some motion. It needed something. It was too stagnant without that little bit of movement. You know, those are things. And those are old photographs from when my dad was in the Army and places he was at, you know. Probably doesn't mean anything to us. It was just vistas, a bridge, and maybe a lake with some trees, and then something up at one's turn became city. So, any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming.